Sorry, this will never make the cut, but Dan is drinking beer, and I left mine somewhere else, and he is making me think and reminding me about that every single time he takes a sip. But the real reason we're out here and shooting this is because we just watched an Austin McConnell video about making the most of your summer. And this is a response. You know what? We could do this video tomorrow. We could do it next week. But then again, we saw that video from Austin McConnell. It just
Inspired us.
It inspired us. We had to do it. It's a summer night. It's warm. We have a beautiful fire here.
What is a better way to start a summer project to do it outside? You know, we've filmed all the other videos in our stuffy apartment. Let's get out here. Let's do something fun.
Exactly.
So the topic tonight, boys and girls, is cinematography versus story.
And let Dan explain that to you while I go get my beer.
That's a very good point. So, what we want to talk about is cinematography versus story. I always see this on Facebook groups or Reddit. I see a lot of people sort of say, like, what's more important? The images, the story, what is the most important element? And I think we wanted to kind of have an open discussion about it, what we think about it, and maybe not really a debate, but more of a sort of just kind of like, here's what I think, here's certain points for both sides.
I don't know if it really matters, but I was not preparing for this debate.
Yeah,
So
me either.
we weren't. This is nothing where we have
like
we're telling you that we're just gonna have a conversation, and then all of a sudden
it's
you know,
all
we're
like questions we already have.
Dan gets his glasses on. So
yeah,
what part of the script am I? No, that's not what's going on. This is
so yeah. I think
for
the best way to jump in is sort of, I guess, each of us to sort of say their feelings on it and see what maybe we both agree. I don't know. So the way I look at it is film is a visual medium. It is a medium made of pictures, images that are moving. That's what film is born on, is 24 frames, 24 pictures put to sound, put to film, and played at a certain speed to mimic motion. Obviously now digital is not the same. It's not just images. It's actually raw data recorded onto a sensor, but it's the same sort of general concept.
Yeah.
And so I think the number one reason why I would argue cinematography is more important than story is because it is the medium itself. If you look at a book, you would have to ask, what is more important, the words written on the book or the paper? And I would always argue the paper, because if you don't have paper, you don't have the ability to even write a book. And cinematography is the same sort of thing. That is the format. The format is the picture. It is what makes the medium even possible.
So there's no painting without a canvas, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and ultimately, the canvas is what ultimately allows you to do anything, because it opens you up to the possibilities of doing stories with words, stories without words. You can do even, like silent film for the first, I don't even know how many years, but for many years there was just silent film. And so the medium of film was way before story even started. There was the very first images were just trains driving towards something, and people would freak out because they were so scared of just the sight of a train coming towards them. And that's how powerful cinema is that just by the images alone, it has the power to move people.
Well, some would argue that a train coming in is a documentary. Right?
Yeah.
It's a short documentary about something that actually happened.
Yeah.
So then, what's the difference between someone who... Well, okay, let's put it this way. What's the difference between recorded, security footage at a gas station and what someone would consider a good film? Some would argue that the difference between those two things
is the story.
What makes film something unique to just someone with an iPhone recording something is story. That's what makes the medium itself.
Yeah, and I think you can look at it a few ways. I think you have to look at the most baser elements of film, that like experimental film. Those are films that don't have any story. And many times are shot on like low quality cameras like iPhones, or remix security cam footage or something like that to make something interesting.
Yeah.
So I think there is a level of, it is not even the quality or the perception of it that makes it film. You can shoot a whole film, if you were really daring, you could shoot a whole film with security cam footage. Would it be good? That's a completely different discussion.
but wouldn't those filmmakers, their number one goal to use that footage to craft a story, not
Yeah.
just use the footage and randomly put it
But
on
I
there?
think it just depends. There are, like, obviously, I don't think most experimental filmmakers, just based on what I've seen, usually it's not about the story, it's about the visuals taking you on a journey. I guess the way I always look at it is, I don't think story is unnecessary. I just think it is subservient to the medium in and of itself. So having the medium of film drives a story first.
Okay, so you're saying the people that say, well, if you're an independent filmmaker, because I mean, I think a lot of our content sort of focuses on independent filmmakers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the message that creators on YouTube
Yeah.
put forth is sort of the idea, well, you like, don't worry about getting the best cameras.
Yeah.
Don't worry about getting the best equipment. Don't
Just do a
worry.
story.
Just it's all about story. If you can have an iPhone, and as long as you have a great story, that's all that matters.
Actually, Austin McConnell did a video on that, and I really did like that video.
Yes.
But
Because that's what it seems like we're getting to.
yeah, so I think my point is, I don't think you have to go out and spend $1 billion and get a red and do like everything.
Well, clearly, because we just made a feature film
with the camera we're working on right now.
the A7S Mark
But
II,
the
yes.
point I think is that there's I think a kind of a professional, lazy sort of vibe that YouTube sort of creates, which is, okay, you can go out and use your phone, but if you have the means to do something else, if you have the means to go out and use your friend's DSLR, if you have the means to save up $200 and grab like literally a T2i,
Yeah.
you probably would get better images. And I think so much of what we enjoy about films, whether it is conscious or unconscious of it, is the images. I think that film specifically, the moments that you really remember, at least for me, are scenes that are ingrained in your mind are usually visual scenes, like things where you see that and it either reminds you of real life or it takes you so far away from the reality of your world that it moves you in a very specific way. And I think certain filmmakers like Nicholas Winding Refn does a really good job. Currently watching his show, Too Old to Die Young, is really, really good. There's a lot of images in that are very striking, and some of them bring you into a realistic kind of gritty crime film, and other images take you in almost into a fantastical sort of heightened crime existence in the show. That's just something currently I've been watching, but
Okay.
I think that's for images. I think I'm such a big guy on texture and the way that things appear, because film is a craft ultimately. And I've heard it explained to me it's a craft, and why shouldn't you try to do the best to be the best at your craft? I mean, this is an industry built on professional cinematographers who built some of the most amazing images, even when they had gear so big that they could barely move it. A lot of times they just had to work with tripods or just simple dollies or push-ins with a crane.
Okay.
I think now we have cameras that we can literally put anywhere. We can go anywhere. And yet I feel like a lot of times, because we push the mantra of story over cinematography, I think you watch a lot of indie films, and I'm going to be kind of calling some of you indie filmmakers out. Some of the films that I've watched, they're indie films, they don't look that good. And I think that is because of this mantra of just story. And I think I'm not the best cinematographer, you're not the best cinematographer,
No.
but
Frick no.
I feel like when we made our film The Long Con, we tried to put as much care as we could into it. And I think I wish a lot more filmmakers would put that care into that over just the story. I think there's nothing wrong with not having a great story. I think 95% of all films that are really great films need to have an amazing story. There are some films I don't think absolutely need it, but I think majority films need a great story. But I think if you don't have great cinematography, it really takes me out.
Okay,
Just like audio.
What would be a worse experience for you? Horrible story, great cinematography, or great story with horrible cinematography?
It's interesting.
Or vice versa. I might have said the same thing twice.
Yeah.
didn't know.
No, I think you said the right thing.
Okay.
If not, you guys will. You know what we meant.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. it's hard because if you're saying the greatest at one but the worst at another, I actually might still take story actually on that because it's sort of like, okay, I can sort of see what you're trying to say there, but it just also depends because great cinematography could equal a great story in, okay, like another Nicholas Winding Refn film. I mean, Only God Forgives. It's a great film. The story is not considered great by any standard, but I really like that film. So maybe, I mean, I don't know. It depends on how you deliver it. I mean, you have the old Clerks mantra. Clerks is a great film. It's shot and it looks like a potato shot it, but
Because I mean, I think it's a very important question because with the amount of people that are getting into film now, because the equipment is becoming more and more accessible,
yeah,
more and more cheap
yeah,
because of the equipment. Companies like Sony who are making, competing in the
Yeah.
market and making
great stuff.
great stuff, and forcing sort of the prices lower. I think as a filmmaker, an aspiring independent filmmaker, it's easy to wonder what you can't really do everything. And I think something we've talked about is film as collaborative medium. The reason why film works is because you don't have to learn everything.
Yeah,
So if that's the case, and we have a bunch of people that we're talking to, like aspiring independent filmmakers, they're going to want to know, well, what should I focus on? What should I try to hone more? Because I think that's what we're getting. I think that's the root of the issue here,
that.
right?
And I think that's why I lean to cinematography. You used your example of like, what would you rather watch? Bad cinematography or bad story?
Yeah.
Good story, good cinematography.
Yeah.
And I think while that kind of proves maybe the opposite of my point, because I answered obviously against my thing, I think a lot of times I find that a lot of the indie films I see usually don't have that great story. And that's coming as someone who's made an indie film that I don't know if it's a great story or not.
And
Yeah, I mean,
you'll probably tell us how bad it is.
or bad or good or whatever. You'll tell us what you think. But so to assume that you're going to have one great thing and one terrible thing is not usually what it is. It's usually a mixture of the middle, usually.
Yeah.
And so you come away with middling storyline and poorly executed cinematography, or middling cinematography, poorly executed storyline. Sort of, that's kind of like a lot of times in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think the best way, I feel like if people can at least see your visual medium, the vision of where you're going with it, I think people can at least understand, okay, this guy has a semblance of what filmmaking is.
Yeah.
I feel like you can always get a writer that is better, but if your film looks really bad and you don't have any means to move up, like most of us don't have some just professional cinematographer waiting in the wing that's just got, a red and a black magic and he's ready to shoot, 40 scenes.
Okay.
I think that's the thing you can work out a lot. I think there's a lot of people who want to write and that have no means, and they'd be willing to work with you for free if they're a talented person, because a lot of these people just want to write a feature film.
Yeah.
We see this all the time, at least on Reddit I see it, is there's a lot of writers out there. Cinematographers, that's a lot of time. That's like maybe 10, 15, 30 days on a set if you're making a feature film. So I think that's a skill you should learn yourself, and if you have to outsource the story element, you can do that. I wouldn't personally, because I feel personally strong about the stories I want to tell, but if you're not gifted in the storytelling of the script specifically, I would say maybe outsource.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different roles on a film set. Writer is just one.
Yeah.
Right. To make the visuals stand out, there are hundreds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There are, so in terms of a market, if you are an aspiring filmmaker,
Yeah.
someone who wants to make it in the business,
Yeah.
would you argue that there's more room for the people that are focused on the craft of film, of getting an image,
Yeah.
as opposed to someone who wants to write?
Yeah. I think
That sort of makes sense to me.
Yeah. I think for me personally, I just think that the writing game right now is just everyone wants to be the next guy who writes the next, big story. They want to be the next breakout. Okay, you're the next Jordan Peele, or you're the next insert famous writer. And I think that a cinematographer is a more kind of down and dirty job. Your job is usually thankless. If it turns out really good, usually most of the general audience is like, yeah, it's a movie. If it's written terribly, people are going to be like, that was weird. They're either going to say the dialogue is weird, the acting is weird, or the script is weird. And I've seen that personally, is that certain films, just the scripts are just not up to snuff. And I think with cinematography, yeah, if it's done right, usually most people don't even notice it could be done wrong, you know? I don't think people would know if it was done wrong unless they saw something. Like, if you know what I mean? Like, when you go to a theater, how many times do you think, as an audience member, just taking away your cinematographer brain, how many times do you think, like, your mom or your brothers or whatever watch the film and be like, oh, the cinematography is screwed up? I would say very little, for at least my family.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that bolster the point that writing and story are more important?
I'm saying is that they're usually undercover in a Hollywood film. I'm saying in a Hollywood film,
You're saying the technical aspect of creating the film is underappreciated?
I'm saying it's underappreciated in Hollywood because everything is done so well. It's done so well. So you know what? I mean, I can't think of the last time I've seen someone complain about cinematography in a Hollywood movie other than other cinematographers and other directors.
People who know what they're talking about.
But
yeah.
you see, average people see the script all the time, and they're complaining about this or that. I think.
What you're saying is it's harder to be a writer.
I'm not saying it's harder to be a writer. I'm saying that this is specifically about Hollywood films.
Yeah.
Indie films, I think it's the opposite problem. I think it's more the technical stuff that they get wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So Hollywood has the problem of they can't come up with they can't really come up with as many original ideas. They're sort of pigeonholed into a very specific thing, and they're extremely good technical films. But usually, a lot of them can come off either really good or really soulless, and that's the kind of the. Whereas indie film is the kind of opposite. The technical is usually the problem, and usually you have an abundance of technical things around a decent, maybe core concept.
Yeah.
And even in that, some of the script things might be technically wrong, like the beats and how that plays out.
So you're saying that the need
Yeah.
in Hollywood is writers, and the need for independent is cinematography.
Cinematography.
So if you're, I think we gotta say something here. Our goal for this video is not to dissuade any writers, but I do agree with you that on YouTube at least, the suggestion is worry about story first, worry about
technical cinematography.
technical getting the image right later. And while I agree that the story is the goal of film, but the story is the goal with art in general.
Yeah.
With painting, with books, with radio, with any
It's not specific
medium,
to film.
any art medium, the story is number one. I think everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But what makes film special
And unique,
and completely unique is how you can get a device to give you the best, and how and the uniqueness of how, like in painting and an artist uses different textures, uses harder materials to get stuff that like makes an optical illusion that comes out of the canvas.
That's what a camera does.
Exactly. And not only that, but the movement, there's so much more, there's another dimension of what you can bring to the technical aspect. So I definitely agree that it's like in all art, the story is number one. But if we're talking to
specifically filmmakers,
potential aspiring filmmakers that are trying to put their work above others,
cinematography,
right? I mean, basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to make your work the best it can be.
Yeah.
And separate yourself
from the other people.
From other people that are in the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think what's lacking especially when I watch it too, is cinematography. I agree.
Yeah. So, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming out to our little fireside chat here, talking about filmmaking. And I just want to say, if Austin McConnell's watching, he's definitely not. But it was a really inspiring video. You should go check out his video.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cool. We just want to make a community here that is excited about indie filmmaking, and I think there's a great challenge to start working on the summer. We're going to probably start working on one of our second feature film concepts
Oh, yeah.
very soon, and that's going to be our summer project, I presume. So,
Oh, yeah.
thank you guys for checking out the video. Like, subscribe, comment, give us your thoughts, give us your feedback, and we will see you very, very soon. Peace out.